Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome all of you back to day 100 of our 1000 Dawns. I'm deciding that I'm going to make this a little bit of an elongated video, and that's probably why I'm sitting down and why we're filming in a slightly further away part of the room. Just so we're all relaxed and we can speak in comfort, so to speak. So, when I started doing these videos, and I'm not even talking about near the beginning of the year, we're talking about all the way back in the beginning of 2025. So, let's get into it. At the beginning of 2025, the very first day, as it turned out, life was not really going well. I kind of threw up a job that it was all right for a job that, to be honest, was not really good at all. And then I kind of had a bit of a nervous breakdown and told them that I couldn't do it. And I thought I was going to be on my way back to the other place just because, just because I thought that's what was going to happen. As it turns out, apparently I got told that if I had literally rang up the place 2 days before, then they would have just torn up my notice and stuff like that. Seems a bit short notice, mind you, and to be honest, the reasons why I don't necessarily believe 100% about the reasons why I couldn't just have been taken back, because what's the nicest way of putting it? It's not like, I mean, if there was still a vacancy there, I mean, there were one less member of staff. It's not like I just couldn't fill that role back up again. It's not exactly as if I was gone for that long. It was less than a week. But yeah, it was a rather painful experience, because the next 3 months were, no, I'm not going to lie, rather difficult, because I started going left and right for work. And I was literally throwing my hat in the ring for everything. Up until the point where I actually managed to get work again, I must have applied for at least over 150 jobs. And I was pretty much said either no, they didn't respond, or anything like that. And I have to preface stuff like this. It's because it's not exactly as if I had a history of criminal convictions or impending sentences or anything like that. I've never been in trouble with the police all my life. My DBS is completely crystal clean. I don't even have a single point on my license or any. Basically, if I don't exactly know what on earth some of these people were looking for, but turns out that, well, it was a rather painful experience, because I had experience. I had it's not like I was just applying for things I couldn't do, and I was still said no to pretty much all of them, or not responded to at all. It's a serious part of just I would love nothing more than to see this aspect of just the way of things change, that companies should actually be obliged to respond to everybody who applies, whether they were successful or not. Because this will continue to go until somebody actually wants more change, and then all of a sudden people get on board and do the exact same thing. It's only if millions of people really wanted to do it. And this also goes for people who may already be in work, but also know the indignity of the whole affair. And that's kind of what it is. It's almost like a vote against indignity is the way I like to phrase it. Anyway, whilst all this was going on, as it turns out, during this time, and I'll tell you what, I'll talk about one aspect of those 3 months a little bit later, because it did affect my chances later on again, is that when I managed to get myself back into work, it was through a 0-hour contract. And anybody who knows anything about 0-hour contracts, let me just tell you right now, for those people who don't really know about 0-hour contracts, I do not recommend them. I really, really don't. Because there could be weeks in which you could be expected to be in almost every day. Sometimes you will almost have to go an entire week with 1 day of worth of work slap bang in the middle of it. And well, basically, I still felt it was better than nothing because guess what? It was through my brother's recommendation that I managed to get it. And I remember the night leading up to this first shift and how, honest to God, I could not bring home to you exactly, like, I did not get a single, like, second of sleep there that night because I felt that a lot was riding on this so I could get back on my feet. And basically, 6 hours kind of passed by, and they told me, yes, we'd love you to continue because of, well, what you've managed to do. And that's kind of how things were for the next couple of months. But here's, among many other things that happened, is that it was just before I managed to get myself back into work that, round about somewhere in the beginning of March, I pretty much, when I was having like a meeting down the day centre, I pretty much broke down saying that I really can't go on much longer like this and I need to find work like now. And whilst I was in a fairly vulnerable state, and it's not really worth discussing that much, but I'm telling you right now, you could not, I didn't really know what else it could do to bring me any closer to tears in terms of, well, how bad things were. And then I was told specifically, how about we put you on this 10-day course with a guaranteed job interview at the end of it. I remember asking whether there was a guaranteed job, like, you know, would I be guaranteed the job if I went through this? I was told yes. And, well, it was on the Monday when I started this line of work. Well, let me just describe to you exactly what these 10 days were with the launch group. I spent from Monday to Friday, I was on Zoom for about 6 hours. I went, you know, I attended every session, and to be honest, this level of like customer service training we were given, let me tell you something, it was some of the most, what's the nicest way I could put this? It was some of the most bewildering, the most stupid, the single most no-duh kind of training you could give. They had to explain to us about why customers get angry. As if somehow we couldn't exactly... They talked about it in such a way as though we could not come to this... We could not realize... We couldn't work out for ourselves why people would get angry. And I went through this, like, all those 10 days, and okay, so what happened afterwards is that we had to do some sort of, like, exam. Like, I had to, like, go down to Gateshead to do an exam. I did the exam, and I remember getting my certificates and stuff like that, and my qualifications for dealing with customer service. And that was the last I ever heard of them. I never got my guaranteed job interview, and every single step of the way in which I responded to people in terms of, well, I was never given my job interview, I was guaranteed a job interview, and nobody got back in touch with me from the launch group. Nobody responded to my emails, nobody responded to my inquiries, nobody responded when I went down to the day centre and they said, oh, we already have like 3 people who've complained about this. You can imagine my level of exasperation, not only that people were complaining about this training, but also for the fact that the way that the woman who said this, she said this in such a way that this is just how it is. Even though they were the people who told me to do this. So, listen, all of those things were bad enough, and to be honest, there's a very serious part of me deep down in here where I really should not be letting this go, because I think that's an absolute disgrace, because as far as I'm concerned, I may as well tear up those certificates and literally throw them away, and not even mention in my CV that I've actually done any of them, because what difference does those qualifications make at all? In my opinion, they make no difference whatsoever. And then guess what? And then there was just something I just felt was really, really embarrassing from a completely meta perspective. When I finished those 10 days, and even when I did the exam, I couldn't help but notice, but there was a very specific word that was never mentioned at all during those 10 days. Nothing in our training, nothing from the lecturers, nothing like. There was one word I couldn't help but notice was never mentioned whatsoever. Do you want to know what the word was that was never mentioned when we're doing a customer service training? Let me tell you exactly what it was. Trust. I never, and I am not even joking, I never once heard the word trust mentioned once during those 10 days. Let me explain to you exactly why that's embarrassing for a course like this. They knew that I was vulnerable. They knew perfectly well that I was crying out for work. They knew exactly how much I was applying for. They knew exactly what I could do. They knew exactly my background. They knew exactly what was going on up here, and they knew exactly that it's not particularly it was a very unpleasant situation to be in for the person that I was. And they still put me on a course, but they never at one point did they ever just say, we know fine, you can trust these people, because guess what, they've actually managed to help loads of people get back on their feet who are more than happy for people like you to be able to fit in quite nicely with this role. We trust these people would actually would have their best interests involved and yours involved as well, so that there can actually be something that comes together in all this. Nothing like that was ever mentioned. And there's a part of me that says, deep down inside, if I said no to it, my dole would have been docked respectively, and they would have just turned around and say, we trust you, that for someone who's, you said you're desperate to get back into work and you said that you can't carry on, you would have leapt up the opportunity. It's borderline predatorial behavior to play on people's emotions and then not to be completely let down in what happened. Why was that, guys? Well, I'll have to emphasize this again. I wasn't trusted enough to think that actually I should deserve what was rightfully owed to me. And that's why I feel like a lot of my conflict really comes into this, is that at the end of the day, I just want what was rightfully promised to me and what I rightfully owed, and that was that guaranteed job interview. And again, and that's why, again, when they said that to me, that they had a backlog of people who complained, and they just said that to me, looking at me gormless, as though, why are you surprised? So what level of trust is there? Where am I supposed to trust those people then? At what point in all of my training was I supposed to say, I trust these people for, they know exactly what they're doing? But now I'm absolutely convinced I knew exactly what they were doing. The only reason why I think I was ever put on that course in the first place was because so they could say to their managers, we've got another person on the course. I'm just a tick on a spreadsheet. And that's, to be honest, I think that's all I am to some people during this time. I was just a statistic, a number. Not a human being any longer. And then, of course, there was what happened like a few weeks before this, is that I applied for a job interview with Loomis in Gateshead. And when I had my interview, and you know what, I actually felt I was really, really good in my interview. And because I was like confident, I was just very, very direct. I didn't pull any punches. And then they said they would get back in touch with me in about a week about, whether or not I was successful or not. A week passed and I didn't hear anything from Loomis. I then rang them up asking them what I still haven't heard anything back. And the woman on the end of the phone said, and in exactly this tone, her response was this: oh, you'll get a response from one of our from such and such department about your application. Yeah, she said it in pretty much that tone, as though, oh, don't worry, you'll be seen to, anything like that. She didn't, wave, like, I can imagine she probably waved her hand, because it was such a, like, it didn't matter. And and lo and behold, I never heard anything back from Loomis ever again after that. They didn't even bother to tell me that I hadn't been successful. Apparently, despite going to an interview, I was not even considered it wasn't appropriate enough for them to tell me that I was unsuccessful. That's how low those people probably thought of me. Because what evidence do I have to suggest that they had any more respect whatsoever? Because when you just straight up decide that a person is not even worth telling the truth about to, then what am I supposed to say to that? What they expect me to start praising and say what fantastic work Loomis do when their level of, customer service and their how best can I say their hiring process might not be entirely legal. Well, that's what I want to know, because I want to straight up know, honestly, one of these days I want to know whether or not any of these things that happened to me were actually legal, because I personally don't think they are. They may have been extremely unprofessional. At the very most, they're probably extremely unprofessional. At worst, they're probably not even legal to do. Because bear in mind, guess what happened when I had to start looking for more permanent work, is that guess what, in June they asked me to do another week's course with the launch group to work for revenue and customs, and I did it because I'm an idiot, I guess. Anyways, I heard the word trust get actually mentioned in this one, but I still apparently didn't even get my guaranteed job interview. It was confusing about... Well, I say get guaranteed job interview, but it was one of those things where they have to do it in front of a monitor, and you have to give your... I'm not really a fan of doing stuff like that. I think it's far more professional to get do it face to face. That's just straight up better. And then there was also a time in March when I applied for casino work down in Gentings. And even though I went through 2 interviews with 2 different managers, and I told them about my experience, I told them about my work, I told them about what I did in difficult situations, they still said no anyway, because despite the fact they told me they had a training school, they wanted somebody with more experience. This is again. I'm gonna have to repeat that, because I have to, because even I can't believe I just said that. Even though they had a training school, they wanted somebody with more experience. This is despite the fact that I already had 18 months of experience working inside a casino, and you know what I mean. Exasperation doesn't. I don't even know, in some ways, maybe I thought it was probably the best thing in the world, because honestly, those kind of responses literally, last week, I just can't, no, not last week, last year, when that sort of thing happened last year, I just totted it up as just grudges to hold against certain businesses. If somebody had turned around and said that to me now, honestly, if anybody had said that to me now, I think I literally would just explode with fury, because I generally can't believe I've been told that. I just can't. I don't think I've ever heard of anything quite like that in my life. I'm sure they didn't, mean to insult my intelligence or anything like that. But then again, I would have just liked to have said, but even though you just admitted that you have a training school, so, what's the truth of the matter? Am I not trusted enough to, handle the truth? Is that what it is? The reason why they don't want to tell me the truth is because they don't think they think the truth is a little bit beneath me or above me. Is that what it is? Do you think I'm not? Why do people want to start lying to me? Do they want me to start lying to them? Is that what this is all about? I don't know. Or maybe they do want me to start lying to them and saying that I was able to do this, that, and the other, and lie through my teeth until they're left completely satisfied, and they'll say welcome aboard. Thankfully, I've never had to do that, because quite frankly, I am not really in a position to start readjusting my life in such a way that it completely goes against my laws and my core principles, just because you know what, I am, as they call, suffering through social economic disparity. Is because, again, I'm still a little bit lost for words when it comes to stuff like that. And bear in mind, the list of broken promises throughout 2025 went on and on. One time, I was like almost about 11 months ago, I did a week-long business course with some group. I can't remember exactly what it was called now. It was a while ago. Anyway, again, I went through the whole week. I attended every day. I was very attentive and asking questions. They told me there would be a guaranteed job interview for things like Amazon, like coming up, and no, I didn't. Well, listen, the links they gave us in terms of applications, guess what? They either did not work, they were not open, and I've never really heard back from them since. So again, that's another qualification I may as well just tear up and throw away, because quite frankly, it means nothing, and I don't really know what I was expected to get. I don't exactly know what they expected me to think, because I'll tell you why. Because when you phrase it like that, it's not good. Is what I'm getting at, and I think deep down inside they know fine. And everybody I've spoken of and about so far in the course of this video, I'm sure even they would agree it's not a good look. And bear in mind, we're not even done yet. This goes on and on and on. Among many of examples, the perfume shop inside Eldon Square. I applied for a job there because I was asked to, because they would give you a guaranteed job interview. They never ever responded to me saying I was successful or not. They then also told me to apply for Go Northeast, and I went to the interview. They said that they'd get back in touch, and no, did they heck. No, they did not get back in touch with me at all. The only other one that really did get back in touch was Costa Coffee inside the RVI hospital. And, well, at least they got back in touch and said that I was unsuccessful. They didn't explain why I was unsuccessful, because I didn't really know exactly. Because if it was a case of doing night shifts, you know what, I've done plenty of night shifts in my time, and I still continue to do them. So I don't exactly know what is the real reason why. I want an actual proper explanation as to why not, if that makes sense. Because surely that it might give me a better explanation in terms of, well, why am I not successful, or rather, what makes somebody better qualified than me? What is it really? What is the truth of the matter? You may have also heard me mention truth quite a few times in all of this, but well, why not? Why can't I just be told the truth? Anyway, this all carried on, and then how best can I phrase this? Is that I went through a lot of. I did manage to find temporary work for 8 weeks from like the beginning of August to the end of September. It was not great, I'll be honest, but you know what? It still meant getting paid, and at least I was sort of back into a routine that I enjoyed. You know what? Again, the work was not great, but you know what? At least it was worth it for the money. I'll say that much. And guess what? I was still looking for work in the meantime, and there were listen, the list of places that I applied for that never got back in touch, it went on and on and on. And honestly, I could spend literally the rest of the day pulling up examples of interviews I went to. They never got back in touch, or they said they were going to get back in touch and they never did. I went back and forth, and I travelled quite a lot to a lot of different places during this time, and I just kind of felt like every single step of the way I was either deceived, lied to, or felt that the only reason why they were telling me to do it is because, well, it was either that or I would face some sort of repercussions, regardless whether I was successful at the end of them. And it was only until, the 13th of January of this year that I applied for an interview. That, guess what? They asked me to come down, and actually, I won't specify, what happened, but let me talk you through this. There was about 16 of us who applied for this for this job, and they were looking for like about 5 to 6 people they wanted for this job. And there were some people who were here who I recognised immediately. Some who I'd actually worked alongside, who were actually a little bit higher up in the food chain. And honestly, it was, the people involved were fantastic, and I did a little bit of my best to explain that, you know what, they could possibly be hiring maybe as many as 8 people, but if you make a tremendous go of yourself, then so be it. And I think that's because they were even like, well, let's move past all that and actually get to the interview part. So the way it happened is that I elected to be the first to be interviewed, and let me tell you something right now about this interview. It was the single most confident and the best interview I think I'd ever given in my entire life. And I think the reason for that is because I was like, because listen, there were plenty of other interviews I was very confident and very, very direct and stuff like that. But it seemed as if like things that had bottled up inside me for the best part of a year, it didn't come out in like a flood of tears or anything like that, but it came out in like almost like a tough monologue. They came out in a way that it was completely relevant, in a way that was completely direct, in a way that I was spurred on by all of the failures of the previous year. I told them exactly how it was, and I told them exactly what needed to be said. And from what I understood, a couple of months later, they said, apparently I got told that for being the first interview, the woman in question who interviewed me, she said, she pretty much, well, it was said afterwards that, get him. We want people like that. That is absolutely what we are looking for. And it was about 4 days later, they told me, yes, congratulations. And I had like a very strange reaction to this. I was just chilling, just lying on top of my bed during this time, just going through, doom scrolling, I think that's what they called it. And then I get this email, and then in about no sooner after getting it, 5 minutes later, I was in the car and I was driving down to the place because they needed a copy of my passport and stuff like that. And I thought it would just be better to do it in person. I showcased them, all the things I needed to do, and I just shook hands with the manager. Really, really tall guy, it must be said. And by the way, I was still working at the place my brother recommended to me. I finished working on the Sunday night, and I started work at this place I'm at the very next day. 6 weeks of the training school, and this technically I officially started work on the 26th of January 2026, and I have been there ever since. And I've almost been on the job now for 5 months. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, okay, 4 months. But you know what? The point I'm trying to make is that. And let me paraphrase it to you like this. If it seems as if there was possibly a lesson to be learned in all of this, well, in some ways, yes, and sometimes I think no, because in light of the abuse, I didn't mention about the 8 weeks temporary, but to be honest, I kind of did get a little bit of abuse from people who were working there. I didn't really like it, let it affect me too much because I told myself 8 weeks, I won't ever see these people ever again after this, so whatever. But if I'm being honest, there were things that, to be honest, I wasn't particularly happy about the way I was talked to, and there's probably a lot of people I probably should have raised complaints about during my time there. But like I said, that's just how that is, and I really am not going to think about it any more than that, because is there any need to think about it any more than that? No, not really. But I'm just saying, you know what? I could literally pull the rug out whenever I wanted to and tell them in great detail about what happened to me there. But there you are. I will leave it on the conscience of people who knew, and they know exactly who they are as well. So I will just leave it at that for now. Meantime, to just about every other company that literally screwed me over and literally tried to pull the wool over my eyes and saying that they were doing things for my best interests and they had my interests at heart, believe you me, oh, I know exactly who those people are. And like I said, the launch group, absolutely. To be honest, even if they were to give me a guaranteed job interview, there's a part of me that says, you know what, I wouldn't even go to it. Not because I'm in work, but quite frankly, you know what? I managed to find work completely on my own and with no help from anybody else involved. So that's the thing. I went through a whole year of just agony, anguish, and anxiety. I went through an entire year of that. And do I feel like I've learned anything through all of this? Well, no, because what exactly in all of that was I supposed to have learned? That it's perfectly alright to be bullied in the workplace? That it's perfectly sound and just, quite frankly, normal for companies to lie to you when they say that, you know what, we'll give you a guaranteed job interview? Is it normal whenever you have to go through training that the phrase or the word trust is never mentioned at all? Is it also normal and sound that, you know what, you have to travel great distances for interviews and then you never to get any? And then, of course, there was also my time with the Royal Mail. Let me tell you about the application process for the Royal Mail. Is that I was applying for a job. They said they'd give me a call. They never specified whatever time they would call me, but it would just be on this date. I asked them why they could not specify a time, so that means I could actually get things ready. They said they couldn't do that. They didn't explain why they couldn't do that. I went to an interview where they said I was unsuccessful. Then they told me, actually, it turns out we sent out the email to the wrong person. Who on earth gets it? Who on earth hires these people when they can't even tell me the truth for the first time? You know what? And then I asked questions about, you know, when exactly it starts. Never heard from them again after that. So, is it also just the norm that we have to deal with people who are extremely unprofessional? Is that just is it just the normal to bend your back over for people who are completely and utterly alienating? Because it wasn't a part of my customer service training to act in a completely hostile and alienating manner. That's not really how things get done. And you know what the irony of all this is? Is that at this current place that I'm working at, I did actually get told by one of the managers that he said that one of my biggest strengths, maybe not my biggest, but he said that through reports from other managers that I've talked with, to customers, to other members of staff, they seem to think that one of my biggest strengths is in my customer service skills. And guess what? To be honest, I literally put them down to what I know, and literally not down to any sort of training. Not the training that they were training me for, like for the launch group or anything like that. Because, well, you know what? I just learned to be myself, and you know what? I think I like to imagine in some way that's exactly the reason why I'm so good at it. Because guess what? I know fine well what to do and what not to do. I know fine well what to say. I know exactly when to look, when not to look. I apologize for having to break this phrase out, guys, because I really, really do not like pulling this phrase out. But I'm just going to do this anyway. And I don't care if it's for customer service or, for anything else, but you know what? 98% of any job anywhere in the world is common sense. I use my common sense to, know what to do, when not to do, or when I'm caught in a situation, I know exactly what to do because it's just common sense. If you don't know, ask for help. If you know what you're doing, it's common sense to continue as before. You follow the book. I know fine well that it's common sense that when people come and they want to enjoy themselves, you show them a good time. It's called common sense, people. It's not hard. Because it's not common sense to just lie to people. It's not common sense to deceive people. It's not common sense to drag people through the ringer and to say that they're getting something out of it when they're not. It's not common sense it's not common sense to bully people you work alongside. It's just not. And you know why I say before how I feel like I've gone through all of this and I feel like I've learned absolutely nothing? Because nothing about me has changed. I think that's the reason why. Nothing in here has changed. My conscience has remained perfectly clear because I know exactly what happened to me. And nothing in here has changed because I'm not exactly what you call twisted, sick, or bitter. I just want some level of compensation, some level of retribution, some level of apology for what happened to me. That's all I want. I just want what is rightfully owed to me. And I can't see for any reason why that's, unreasonable or unfair. Because literally I will by the time we're done with this, I'm literally going to make a list of all the companies and all the businesses that I applied for that never got back in touch with me, and I'm just going to straight up say, I don't want to have anything to do with those people ever again. I don't want to have anything to do with the Lords Group, Loomis, the Royal Mail, B&M, the perfume shop. Am I missing any? There won't Genty, believe you me, guys, the list goes on and on and on. And to be honest, I think in total, the number is something about 25 companies that I don't want to have anything to do with anymore. I think that's just about. I think that's as far as I'm working out. Until I get any sort of apology whatsoever, I'm just not even going to think about it. Forget it. And to be honest, there were things that happened last year as well that I had nothing to do with in terms of job applications that, to be honest, through extremely bad publicity, I don't want to have anything to do with ever again, ever. Waitrose, ranks pretty much at the top of... I haven't been into a Waitrose for a whole year and 2 months. And to be honest, I'm not planning on going back there ever anytime soon. So, yeah, I think that's about everything. And yet, in light of all of this, I like to imagine I consider myself extremely lucky. Not to be in work at the end of all of this, but I feel lucky in the sense that I'm actually working in a place that people who appreciate me being there, who appreciate that I do good work for them. It's good to work in a place where you actually want to be. That's far more encouraging than any of the disasters that I've mentioned. So if I'm glad to be working in any specific, I'm glad I'm working at where I'm at right now. So I have no room to complain about that. I can tell you that much. And again, the fact that I managed to apply there completely off my own back, and I managed to do it completely, I managed to get there completely off my own merits, I think says a lot. And I think it does. I really, there is something very valuable in what happened. And I'm glad that I did not let any of them down. So I think I should be incredibly proud of myself. But pride is one of those things I go very, very back and forth on when it comes to should I really be proud? Should I not? And it's all right to feel like proud in the moment, but the moment, like right now, moments are what I would describe as relatively short-lived, because there is work to be done. Always more work. And once again, I go back to, there is a little bit more in terms of like feeling one of the lucky ones, because I can guarantee you right now, there's probably hundreds of people right now who are in my sort of position, or who were in my sort of position. People who literally felt that, you know what, things were getting too much, and guess what, the only thing to do was just to be tossed outside and left on the roadside. And when you just felt like you were a little bit lost and stuck with life, and you didn't really know what on earth you were supposed to do or why these things started happening, and all of a sudden you just sort of, you don't know where you're going or what on earth is happening. But it is always good to know that actually, when all is said and done, there is still hope. Hope is very much still alive, and hope I feel far more strongly than I ever do for pride, because hope is something that is going to be there when things do go wrong, because it's the promise, a guarantee, if you will, that things do get better eventually. Yeah, sure, things may not be tremendous or great in the moment, but moments, almost like pride, can be relatively short-lived. And for better or worse, things do get better. Because I know fine well there are too many good people out there who just want a fair chance. They want to be treated fairly. They don't ask for too much. They just want to be able to, work so they can, support and pay for their livelihoods, to look after their families, to, just feel as if that there's a point to any of this. And when you come across people who don't treat you fairly, and who, quite frankly, couldn't care less whatsoever because it's not going to affect them personally, that's sort of when you know immediately, guess what, you get away from stuff like that. And guess what, I am not going to waste any more of my time with people who are going to be anywhere like that. Rudeness is not having fun. Rudeness is having fun at somebody else's expense. And quite frankly, I consider there are some very, very rude individuals and companies I straight up, I have no time for, and I'm not going to waste my time on either, because quite frankly, none of them are worth it. Somebody once said that they seem to think that one of my biggest failings is that I have no sense of self-love or any sense of self-worth. To answer the question about worth, I do actually believe I have a great deal of self-worth. Because guess what? I believe in a great deal in what I do and what I'm actually able to accomplish. Sometimes, the actual maybe rewards for such things may not be wholly gratifying, because guess what? I may feel proud and accomplished about what I do. Unfortunately, pride and accomplishment does not put food on the table, so to speak. It would be quite nice to actually be paid a great deal more for the things that I know I can excel at, so to speak. Like I've been making videos on the internet for nearly 8 years, and whilst it does pay somewhat, it's not really enough to live off of. I still feel that, all things considered, I still have plenty more to do, and I just kind of want more people to see it. Really, that's kind of really what I really want. It's just more people to see what I do and to hear my story, so to speak. And to answer the question about self-love, however, that's a little bit harder to work around. Not because I don't have a sense of self-love, but because, again, I think it's a short-lived sort of thing. And when I'm satisfied knowing that I could accomplish the things I really want to set out to do, and that people like really start to see what I can do and what I've managed to achieve, then I think then we could start talking about feeling a sense of love. Yeah, maybe that's when we'll start doing that. But again, the real source of all of this indignity. Do you want me to tell you this? Just before we finish, let me tell you the story about where this tale of indignity, where it really all started. I was 20 years old, and I was back in university about like middle of February of 2018, I want to say. So we were all members of my class. We all had to do like a presentation explaining about what exactly we were going to be doing for this project, and just, you know, the lecturer would then give us some feedback about, well, what ought to be done. And I remember that I was like the last person to like, you know, give my presentation, and I had a bit of a issue anyway with doing presentations whilst I was at university. And long story short, a lot of people were just like eye rolling, and you know, it wasn't it didn't seem as exactly as if, you know, it didn't seem the most welcoming of places. So anyway, I get up, I do my presentation. I was actually relatively, you know, proud of what I did, and I was like really keen of explaining and expositing on, you know, what I had in mind and what I was going to do. Well, by the time it was over and I was like expecting some sort of feedback, the lecturer just sort of put his face in his hands and said nothing, and then we then just kind of tried to move things on. Yeah, that is pretty much the root of where, you know, my hatred of, you know, rudeness and, you know, indignity all comes from. The fact that everybody else everyone else was treated fairly, and I was the one exception where they just didn't want to have anything to do with me. And to be honest, I didn't really want to have anything to do with university ever again after that. I kind of almost automatically assumed that my career as an animator was pretty much dead from that point. Because, listen, if I was going to encounter people as rude as that, then there was no way I was going to encounter, like, I was not even prepared, or didn't even want to prepare to deal with people who were anywhere near as obnoxious or as rude as that. Because I felt like it would be an insult to my dignity if I put myself in that sort of way. Because that's just straight up not on. It isn't. And yet, despite all that, my love for animation has never really died. It's just, if I'm going to have an actual shot at, you know, what I actually really want to do, which is to work in animation, then guess what? I'll just have to seek a better education somewhere else. That's what I'm going to do. And with 100 days now in the bag, there are now only 900 days left to go. And to be honest, I'm a little bit up in the air in terms of like how I feel about 900 days to go, because so far what I've managed to do is exposit quite a lot of my backstory, but my backstory is only really relevant in terms of, well, how I got from there to here, because I'm here at this moment in time, and how I occupy this space and time. But then, of course, there's looking ahead to the future, and the future, like hope, is guaranteed. It's just a little further away. That's all it is. And with that being said, I hope all of you guys enjoyed this little 100 video special, and I'll see all of you guys again next time. Thank you.